right, we're recording. I guess you know what? I'll just go ahead and get started. I mean, we still have a minute before we officially start, so I'll just start off by repeating myself and saying nothing new. That way, if anybody does show up late, technically they didn't miss anything because I've already said this 1.5 million times. But for anybody watching this video,
Okay.
please let me help you. So, as you're working on an assignment, if you need help, meet me online like we are, like you and I are right now, Nancy, and I can help you do an assignment. Or if you've done an assignment before you submit it, give me 5 minutes of your day. Let me just look it over really quickly. It's so much quicker to do this online than via email. And let me just tell you really quickly, like, you might want to fix this, you might want to fix that, things like that. And then again, after you've already turned in an assignment, allow me, please, to meet you online and give you feedback. Now, granted, that would take longer than the other ones, but yeah. So those are your three options. Please use me. Let me help you. I'm trying to help people. I guess that's it. It's 10, so we'll officially get started now. As usual, to get credit for this, you'll need to send an email that has all the attendance words. Except Nancy, you don't need the attendance words because you're here. I will need an email just so I can help me track it and stuff like that. But anyway, first word for attendance will be FAN, FAN. But let's go ahead and get started. So it is Monday morning. I didn't work over the weekend, so I have a lot of grading to do. Therefore, I don't really have much to say as far as feedback. I'm going to go over that very quickly. I guess most of what this meeting will be about is the upcoming module. So let me pull this up and share my screen. While I'm doing that, Nancy, do you have anything in particular that you want me to start with as far as feedback goes?
I just hope it went over the discussion for this week. I wanted to see if I'm correct on what are we right. I'll wait to get started on it to see if I'm right. I was wondering if it's like if we're to do like a actual letter, like if we were talking to the senator or someone.
Oh, good.
Like
yes.
Our
All right.
original post.
Right. Yeah. Good question. And I will get to that. Good point. But really quickly about last week's module discussion. I can't say this enough. People always miss this up. I think people are trying to get political, and I know inherently this is a very political post, right? Because we're talking about the government and what the government should and should not do. But I can't say this enough. The discussion was about influencing the population, not about controlling. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't like to share my opinions, but I don't think the government has any business controlling the population either. But if you wrote your post and said, I'm against government, population control, you're going to lose points because no one said anything about control, right? The idea is influencing. And I've already given some examples in writing, so I'll just give them verbally. For example, if the government were to eliminate WIC, for example, that would be influencing population growth because I would assume, and I don't know this, but I would assume if you stop paying people to have children, people are going to be a little bit more careful about having children. Likewise, if the government were to provide, contraception nationwide for free, I use the word free loosely because someone has to pay for it, but you know what I mean. That would be influencing the population. So no one said anything about controlling, and that to me that always upsets me, but I get really irritated with that mistake because I say it says very. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, it's a very big thing. That's the biggest mistake I saw was people talking about controlling the population. Now, don't get me wrong. Influencing could be controlling, right? So if you had an idea about how the government should influence population growth and your idea was about controlling it, I mean, that's fine as far as grades are concerned because technically you are talking, that is a type of influence. But my point here is, if you wrote a whole paper about how you're against population control, then you're losing points because I didn't say anything about population control. So anyway, that's the biggest mistake I saw that, and still we're starting module 4 and people are still not using sources. So every post needs at least one non-textbook source. Every fact has to have a source. and every source needs to have a working link. And I know that's a pain. I apologize, but it's to make things easier for you. If you want, just think about how you're writing your posts. So if you don't want to look up a bunch of stuff, like I wish you would, that's kind of the point of this. But if you just don't have the time, I get it. Make sure when you write something, form it as an opinion. Like, I assume blah blah blah. I think blah blah blah. Right. So if you write it like that, then it's not a fact, and therefore it doesn't need a source. So just keep that in mind. So anyway, that out of the way, that's all I have to say about the Module 3 discussion from last week. Nancy, did you have any questions or input about that?
I do have a question. I'm glad you brought that up about this. So I was wondering, that goes for our response post as well, like to cite, like we need to use the source in everything we post. Like, that's what I'm asking.
Exactly.
It
Yeah.
would be best,
Yeah.
right?
And I know, yes, replies and
Wondering about
everything.
that
And I know it's a
these days.
pain. I do apologize. You know, there's a multitude of reasons. One of the big ones is it's just good practice. You know, when you're communicating, even outside of academia, if you claim something, you should back it up. And the other one is, like I've mentioned before, a lot of people have been cheating and using AI, and AI is notoriously bad at using sources. So, you know, those are the two main reasons. But yeah. Any other questions? That was a good question.
No.
All right. Let's really, all right. This will be really quick too. Lab 3. So the feedback that I'm giving for Lab 3 is the same stuff I warned everybody about at our meeting last week. So basically, I'm just repeating myself here. Everybody did pretty good on the pre-lab. So here's the part where people messed up. You know from the video and from your textbook and from this sentence that the average person, the U.S. average is larger than the world average. We know this, right? That's a given. It was in the video. It's right there in writing. Therefore, if you think your footprint is smaller than the world average, then by definition, it would have to be much smaller than the U.S. average. Likewise, if you think your footprint is the same or larger than the U.S. average, then obviously it would have to be larger than the world average. So people mess that up. Also, another thing, again, I mentioned this last week, but your answers to these questions dictate whether or not these questions are correct, right? So again, if you claim that your footprint is larger than the U.S. average, for example, then your answer to this question should be somewhere where larger than 4.94, right? If you just said earlier that you think you're larger than the U.S. average, therefore your number should be larger than the U.S. average. That's it. Oh yeah, and a few people messed this up. So we need 2 screenshots, right? And Nancy, you've already done this. Anybody watching this, I'm sure, hopefully you've already done it. When you did that calculator at the end of it, you know, that shows you your results on one page, and then you click a button and it shows you your other results, right? So there's 2 pages. So I need a screenshot of both the results. Right there is the reminder, and then right here was the reminder. And that's not just me being picky. That's just I can't grade. Like if you say your GHA was blah blah blah, I have no way of knowing unless you provide proof. You know, show me the screenshot of the calculator. So those are the biggest mistakes. Another common mistake I see that I saw, and again, and I think I mentioned this last week. Which questions on the calculator surprised you? So not like which results surprised you, like literally which question. Like was there a question you didn't think of? Some people would put oh, I was surprised that mobility was my smallest contributor or whatever. Like, no, I'm not asking about the results. I'm saying which questions. And then finally, again, like I said last week, another common mistake I've seen is this one. What is an incentive? Like an incentive to do something. Like somebody, for example, one of the students wrote something about using less gas, I think it was, or driving less, which is a great idea. Love it. But what's the incentive to do that, right? So that's another common mistake I saw. So as far as I'm concerned, I think that was it. Did you have any questions or input, Nancy?
No,
all right.
no.
All right. The quizzes are straightforward. As always, I'll remind you, you can take them and retake them as many times as you want. Nothing more to say about that. Also, I'll remind you, as is the case with the discussion and the ecological footprint, or excuse me, the discussions and the labs, you can always meet me online for feedback. And I can, so for some reason you never got 100%, I can tell you tell you the correct answers and tell you why your incorrect answers were incorrect. So that brings us to the upcoming module 4. So let's look. And Nancy had a great question. Yes, you need to write it as a formal letter to your legislator, whether it be federal, state, or local. So yeah. And if you're, how do I put this? If you mess it up, it's not a huge deal. You'll lose 1 point if like it's not a formal letter, right? So if you're just bad at writing letters, that's only 1 point. That's not the most important thing. Now, granted, I kind of like the idea of writing a formal letter, because if you truly believe this, then you could take what you wrote in the discussion and literally send it to your legislator. But anyway, so yeah, you need to think about something that the U.S., think about biodiversity, think about U.S. policies, and think about something that they could do to increase biodiversity. It's that simple, right? And really just put yourself, imagine that you literally are writing to your legislator. The point being, like, you're going to try to you're going to want to sway them, right? You don't want to just be like, hey, I like what you're doing. I think that that Endangered Species Act that's a good deal. I like it, right? You're not just going to say that, right? You're going to, try to sway them and like tell them all the reasons why it's important and all that. So that's the gist of it. And I will focus on this. And a lot of times people aren't focusing on this, but in my opinion, you should really, as a student, look at these things and just, when you're writing your post, read this and make sure it's correct. Let's see. I'm trying to think about some of the mistakes I historically see. Yeah. Oh yeah. So here's a big one. Not big. It's only 3 points, but when I say big, what I mean is this is a common mistake. I need you to define biodiversity, because I want you to demonstrate that you understand what biodiversity is, right? So you need to define it. You need to make it obvious how your idea will impact biodiversity. Yeah, and you need to explain why biodiversity is important. So that's pretty much it. I don't have much to say about that. And again, the most common mistake I see historically is people not defining biodiversity, but that's only 3 points, so I guess it wouldn't hurt you too much. But again, when you're writing it, really try to be persuasive, I guess is my best advice. Did you have any other questions about that, Nancy?
No.
Okay. And I think, some people don't know how to write a formal letter. I used to have a link in here. Anyway, you just Google it. And, this is not an English class, so I'm not going to be too picky about it. But if you don't know how to write a formal letter, you can look that up. Yeah, so that's it for that. Then let's take it to the lab. The lab is interesting. So the lab is the first time this semester. You have 2 options. So you have version 1, and you can do either one. I love this. I wish I could do this for every module. I wish you could have choices for every module, which is why I always often ask for feedback at the end of each lab. Like, hey, what other labs could we do for this module? Anyway, so version 1 is you're going to do the simulation, right? And you're going to basically, hey, it's a good thing we have 2 options, because it looks like option 1 is not working. I'll look into that. So anyway, yeah, I guess option 1 is not working. Actually, that's a good point. So if you do this somehow, that means you somehow figured out how to make that work, or you found a different link or something. So if you do this, I am going to ask you how, just so you know, and you'll probably get some extra credit if you can explain how. But if you did do this and you can't explain how you did it, I can only assume that you copied from a student who's had this course before and did this back when that link worked. So, be careful for that. So I would take questions, but not for that one. Doesn't seem to be working. Let's talk about version 2. One of the things you're learning about in this module is the different biomes. For example, in West Virginia, we live in a temperate deciduous forest. There's different types of biomes, right? You can read all about them in the textbook and right here, right? So there's tropical rainforest, tropical dry forest, savanna, desert, all these things, right? You read about them. And basically what you're going to do here is I'm going to list a bunch of stuff, a bunch of places. Where are we going? There we go. Here's a list of places, and you need to guess which biome you think these places are, right? So we already know institutes in temperate deciduous forest. You're going to enter your location, and I need you to enter it because I have to search to make sure you're correct. And then again, just guess which biome you think it's in. And then you're going to look it up using this website. It's pretty simple. Also, there's a video I made, so I can show you how to, use that website. You can use that video, and always, as always, let me know if you need help. One of the most common mistakes I see here is, other than institute and your location, and then these 3 locations that you just get to choose, whichever places you want, there is one biome for each one of these places. So, these are hypotheses. So normally you can't get a hypothesis wrong because it's just a hypothesis. But I'm telling you now, as it says right here, it's in writing, you need only one location per biome. So for example, if you put desert twice, you're going to lose points, because I'm telling you right now, only one of these places is a desert. Only one of these places is a tropical rainforest. Only one of these places, so on and so forth. So just one choice per place. And again, the list is up here, right? Chaparral, temperate grassland, temperate deciduous forest, so on and so forth. So are there any questions about that portion of the lab?
No.
All right. And again, that's the most common mistake I see. And then also, then you're going to have some hypotheses like, hey, of all those places, which one do you think has the highest temperature? Which one do you think has the lowest temperature? So on and so forth. And then again, like I said, those are your hypotheses. Then to test your hypotheses, you're going to go to this website. And again, there's a video, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time doing this, but I just want to point something out to show you. Let's look at institute. I'm going to type in institute. All right, so you're going to get information, and here's a common mistake I see. There's a table that you need to fill out right here, where we need the average temperature, maximum and minimum, the average rainfall in millimeters. And here's a common mistake, and I can see why. I understand why people might make this mistake. If you're looking at temperature, that's the number on the right? So you can see here the lowest temperature in institute looks like on average is about, I don't know, a little bit less than 0, right? So maybe -1, -2. The highest temperature is a little bit over 20 Celsius, right? So that's temperature. Rainfall is going to be on this left-hand side, right? So it's going to be in millimeters. So the lowest rainfall, so not only is it on the left-hand side, but we're also not looking at the dots anymore. The dots are the temperature. It's the bars that's the rainfall, right? So we can see here, I don't know, that looks like to me, it looks like about 75. I don't know, whatever number you think that is. But this is the rainfall in millimeters. This is the temperature in Celsius. That's the most common mistake I see, so be aware of that. And then, of course, species richness, which is just the number of species. And then critically and endangered species, that can be found right here, right? So what you want to do is hit the More button and then go to, I believe, wildlife, if I remember correctly. Yes, so there are, you'll add this up. That's the total, right? 20 plus 38 plus 58. That would be the total number of species. Where is it at? Threat filter. Yeah, excuse me. It's been a while since I've done this. Oh, yeah. So, right, and I'm click on this threat filter, and I can see that there's 0 critically endangered and 0 endangered, right? Of course, there's others, but you're not filling that out these aren't on the table. There's only critically endangered and endangered, right? So that's it. You'll use that information to put this. Ooh, Nancy, let me get your opinion if you don't mind, because I could see now how that might be confusing. So here I am asking for your endangered and critically endangered species, but like I said, when you click on it, it gives you a whole list. Do you think it would be easier or harder for the students if it asked for all of these: critically endangered, endangered, vulnerable, near threatened, least concerned? Do you think that would be easier or harder? And also a follow-up question, sorry. Do you think, for example, then I should add, maybe another row, like each one has its own row. Like, all right, this is how many endangered, this is how many critically endangered. Do you think that would make it easier?
I think so, possibly.
Okay. I might, I'll update that. Okay.
I do want to go back to something real quick, because I should have asked you just a minute ago, but I went and clicked on my which it's not done. But now, like the forest things you were talking about. Okay, say that I have a institute is the forest, the temperature or temperate, whatever word, the
Yep.
CDX or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so
Yeah.
duck, just using duck couldn't be the same as that one because you can only use it one time.
You're breaking up,
You
but
said
I think I understood you.
my service is really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can only use
Temperate.
that one one time.
Yes. Other than now, your location, that could, and most likely it probably is. If you're in West Virginia, that should be your answer is temperate deciduous forest. Um, so other than Institute and your location, and obviously these three that where you get to choose. Other than that, yeah, there's only one location per thing, right? So again, like you can only use it desert once. Other than if you choose it,
Okay.
some location here. Yeah, so good question. Um, and as always, I'll remind everybody, if you screw it up, no big deal. Just fix it and resubmit it. Another thing I'll remind you, and a lot of people mess this up. I'm so glad you asked because I forgot to mention this earlier. When you choose a specific area, choose an area that of your choice. Like it says here, be specific. So don't put like Italy, right? Be specific. And I gave some examples like Florida, Greece, Asia. Bad examples. That's too large, right? You could be more specific. Say Tallahassee, Florida, or Athens, Greece, or Bangkok, Thailand, right? So be specific. And I think that's it. I don't think I have anything else for the lab. Again, I just want to reiterate too. I know it's a pain, but I want you to restate your hypothesis because again, a lot of students just don't have they seem to not have the ability to remember their own hypothesis. So yes, it's a pain, but I am requiring you to restate your hypothesis. So I'm making sure that you're thinking about it because that's the point of these experiments is to test your hypothesis. So yeah, be aware these questions after the table here. These are 2-part questions, right? What was your hypothesis, or 3 parts really? What was your hypothesis? Was it correct? And which place? Blah blah blah. Right. So in this case, what was your hypothesis? Was it correct? And which place had the highest temperature? Now, obviously, if your hypothesis was correct, it would be easier to write. You could just say, yes, my hypothesis was correct. The South Pole had the highest temperature. Of course, that's not true, but you know what I mean? Like, so yeah. Anyway, any questions about that? All right. And then finally, I'll point this out to you. This is a common mistake. No, I was thinking of a different lab. Never mind. Yeah, so I think that's it. And again, as always, like I said, if you need help, I'm here to help you. I'll literally walk you. I will read the lab to you and make sure you understand every paragraph before we go to the next paragraph, and then I can walk you through it and say, all right, what's your answer to this? And I don't mind. That's what I'm here for. So let me help you if you need it. Also, again, before you submit it, if you want, just let me look it over for 5 minutes, and tell you at least the big stuff. Like, oh, you definitely want to fix this. Yeah, that's it. I don't think I have any. Oh man, I forgot all the attendance words. So the next attendance word is forgot, since I forgot to do that throughout this meeting. But it's a pretty short meeting, relatively. So Nancy, did you have any other questions?
Just about the study guide.
Good. Good question. I'm glad. Yeah, so I will share the study guide.
Okay.
Sorry, you're breaking up, but I know I heard something about the study guide. I will be sharing the study guide today or tomorrow, and I'm so glad you mentioned that too, because I know this is straightforward, but just as a reminder, you have an exam that's due on Sunday. The study guide will help you with that. And again, if you need more time to take the exam, we can just meet like Nancy and I are meeting right now. We can meet as long as I can see you, hear you, and see your screen. Like if I can assure you're taking a closed book exam, I don't care how long it takes you to take the exam, right? So let me know if you want to do that. And I guess that's it. Did you have any other questions, or better yet, did I answer your question? Because you were kind of breaking up. I'm not sure I heard you.
Yes, you answered it.
Great.
You answered it. Thank you.
Welcome. Do you have any other questions? Because that was a really good question.
Nope, that's it.
All right. Well, you have a good week, and I'm here if you need me.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.